Warriors, Into the Wild, Chapter 4. Shocked yowls rose from the clan cats and echoed the forest. Ravenpaw staggered slightly. His right foreleg glistened, wet with blood that flowed from the deep gash on his shoulder.
We met 5 River Clan warriors beside the stream, not far from Sunning Rocks.
He went on shakily.
Oakheart was among them.
Oakheart!
Graypaw gasped beside Firepaw.
He is the deputy of River Clan. He's one of the greatest warriors in the forest. Lucky Ravenpaw. Wish it could have been me.
Graypaw was silenced by a furious glance from the old Grey Tom who had first sensed Ravenpaw's return. Firepaw turned his attention back to Ravenpaw.
Redtail warned Oakheart to keep his hunting parties out of ThunderClan territory. He said the next River Clan warrior to be caught in ThunderClan territory would be killed, but Oakheart would not back down. He said his clan had to be fed, whatever we threatened.
Ravenpaw paused to wheeze for breath. His wound was still bleeding heavily, and he stood awkwardly to keep the weight off his shoulder.
That's when the River Clan cats attacked. It was hard to see what was happening. The fighting was vicious. I saw Oakheart and Redtail pinned to the ground, but then Redtail...
Suddenly, Ravenpaw's eyes rolled in his head, and he lurched sideways, half scrambling, half falling. He slithered off the high rock and collapsed onto the ground below. A ginger queen bounded toward him and crouched at his side. She licked his cheek briefly and called out,
Spottedleaf!
Out of the fern-shaded corner trotted the pretty tortoiseshell Firepaw had noticed sitting beside Graypaw earlier. She hurried over to Ravenpaw and mewed for the queen to stand back. Then she used her small pink nose to roll the apprentice over so she can get to take a good look at the wound. She glanced up and meowed.
It's all right, Goldenflower. His wounds aren't fatal, but I'll need to fetch some cobwebs to stop the bleeding.
As Spottedleaf sprinted back to her den, the hushed silence in the clearing was broken by a mournful howl. All eyes turned to the direction it came from. A massive dark tabby staggered for the gorse tunnel. Between his sharp teeth, the warrior held not prey but the lifeless body of another cat. He dragged the tattered creature into the center of the clearing. Firepaw craned his neck and glimpsed a flash of bright ginger tail hanging limply in the dust. Shock rippled for the clan like a chill breeze. Beside Firepaw, Graypaw dropped into a crouch as grief swept over him.
Redtail! How did this happen, Tigerclaw?
Tigerclaw let the scruff of Redtail's neck fall from his mouth. He looked steadily back at Bluestar.
He died with honor, struck down by Oakheart. I couldn't save him, but I managed to take Oakheart's life while he was still gloating over his victory.
Tigerclaw's voice was strong and deep.
Redtail's death was not in vain, for I doubt we'll see River Clan hunters in our territory again.
Firepaw glanced at Graypaw. The apprentice's eyes were dark with sadness. After a moment's pause, several of the cats moved forward to lick Redtail's bedraggled fur. As they groomed, they purred hushed phrases to the dead warrior. Firepaw whispered into Graypaw's ear.
What are they doing?
Graypaw didn't take his eyes off the dead cat as he replied.
His spirit may have left to join Star Clan, but the clan will share tongues with Redtail one last time.
Star Clan?
Firepaw echoed.
It's a tribe of heavenly warriors that watches all over all clan cats. Silver Pelt is that thick band of stars you see each night stretching across the sky. Each star is a Star Clan warrior. Redtail will be among them tonight.
Firepaw nodded and Graypaw stepped forward to share tongues with his dead deputy. Bluestar remained silent while the first cats came to pay their respects to Redtail. Now she leaped down from the high rock and walked slowly toward Redtail's body. The other cats retreated and watched as their leader crouched down to share tongues with her old comrade one last time. When she first finished, she raised her head and spoke. Her voice was low and thick with grief, and the clan listened in silence.
Redtail was a brave warrior. His loyalty to ThunderClan could never be doubted. I always relied on his judgment, for it bore witness to the needs of the clan, and it was never swayed by self-interest or pride. He would have made a fine leader.
Then she lowered herself onto her belly, her head bowed, her paws stretched neatly before her, and silently she grieved for her lost friend. Several other cats came and lay down beside her, their bowed heads and hunched backs echoing her mournful pose. Firepaw watched. He had not known Redtail, but he couldn't help the feeling moved as he witnessed the clan mourn. Graypaw came and stood beside him again.
Dustpaw will be sad.
He remarked,
Dustpaw.
Redtail's apprentice. That brown-striped tabby over there. I wonder who his new mentor will be.
Firepaw glanced over at the small Tom who squatted near Redtail's body, staring unseeing at the ground. Firepaw looked past him to the clan leader.
How long will Bluestar sit with him?
Probably the whole night.
Replied Graypaw.
Redtail was her deputy for many, many moons. She wouldn't want to let him go too quickly. He was one of the best warriors, not as big and powerful as Tigerclaw or Lionheart, but quick and clever.
Firepaw looked at Tigerclaw, admiring the strength that swelled in his powerful muscles and broad head. His massive body showed signs of his warrior life. One of his ears was slit into a deep V shape, and a thick scar that sliced the bridge of his nose. Suddenly, Tigerclaw stood up and stalked over to Ravenpaw. Spottedleaf was crouching beside Tigerclaw's wounded apprentice, using her teeth and front paws to press the wads of cobweb onto his shoulder wound. Firepaw leaned toward Graypaw and asked,
What is Spottedleaf doing?
Stopping the bleeding. It looked like a nasty cut, and Ravenpaw seemed really shaken up. He's always been a bit jumpy, but I've never seen him this bad before. Let's go and see if he's woken up yet.
They made their way through the grieving cats toward the spot where Ravenpaw lay and settled themselves a respectful distance away to wait until Tigerclaw finished speaking.
So, Spottedleaf.
Tigerclaw addressed the tortoiseshell with a confident meow.
How is he? Do you think you can save him? I've spent a lot of time training him up, and I don't want my efforts to be wasted at the first battle.
Spottedleaf didn't look up from her patient as she replied.
Yes, a pity after all your valuable training. He dies in the first fight, eh?
Firepaw could hear a teasing purr in her soft mew.
Will he live?
Tigerclaw demanded.
Of course, he just needs to rest.
Tigerclaw snorted and looked down at the motionless black shape. He jabbed Ravenpaw with one of his front claws.
Come on then, get up!
Ravenpaw didn't move.
Look at the length of that claw.
Firepaw hissed.
Too right.
Replied Graypaw with feeling.
I know I wouldn't want to get into a fight with him.
Not so fast, Tigerclaw.
Spottedleaf placed her paw over Tigerclaw's sharp talon and gently moved it away.
This apprentice needs to keep as still as possible until the cut has healed. We don't want him opening his wound by jumping about trying to please you. Leave him alone.
Firepaw found himself holding his breath as he waited for Tigerclaw's reaction. He guessed that few cats dare to give orders to the warrior like that. The big tabby stiffened and seemed about to speak when Spottedleaf mewed teasingly.
Even you know better than to argue with a medicine cat, Tigerclaw.
Tigerclaw's eyes flashed at the little tortoiseshell's words.
I wouldn't dare argue with you, dear Spottedleaf.
He purred. He turned to leave and caught sight of Graypaw and Firepaw.
Who's this?
He asked Graypaw, towering above them.
He's a new apprentice.
Graypaw mewed.
He smells like a kitty pet!
Snorted the warrior.
I was a house cat,
Firepaw meowed boldly.
but I'm training to be a warrior.
Tigerclaw looked at him with sudden interest.
Ah, yes, now I remember. Bluestar mentioned that she had stumbled across some stray kitty pet. So she's actually going to try you out, is she?
Firepaw sat up very straight, anxious to impress this distinguished clan warrior.
That's right.
He mewed respectfully. Tigerclaw eyed him thoughtfully.
Then I shall watch your progress with interest.
Firepaw puffed his chest out proudly as Tigerclaw stalked away.
Do you think he liked me?
I don't think Tigerclaw likes any apprentices.
Whispered Graypaw. Just then Ravenpaw stirred and twitched his ears.
Has he gone?
He mumbled.
Who? Tigerclaw?
Replied Graypaw, trotting toward him.
Yep, he's gone.
Hi there.
Firepaw began, about to introduce himself.
Go away, both of you.
Spottedleaf protested.
How am I meant to help this cat with all these interruptions?
She impatiently flicked her tail at Graypaw and Firepaw and pushed her way between them and her patient. Firepaw realized she was being serious, despite the lively glimmer in her warm amber eyes.
Come on then, Firepaw.
Mewed Graypaw.
I'll show you around. See you later, Ravenpaw.
The two cats left Spottedleaf with Ravenpaw and walked across the clearing. Graypaw looked thoughtful. He was clearly taking his duties as a guide very seriously.
You know the high rock already.
He began, flicking his tail toward the big, smooth rock.
Bluestar always addresses the clan from there. Her den is down there.
He lifted his nose toward a hollow in the side of the high rock.
Her den was carved out many moons ago by an ancient stream.
Hanging lightning draped the entrance, sheltering the leader's nest from wind and rain.
The warriors sleep over here.
Graypaw went on. Firepaw followed him to a large bush a few paces away from the high rock. There was a clear view from here right down to the gorse entrance into the camp. The branches of the bush hung low, but Firepaw could see a sheltered space inside where the warriors made their nest.
The senior warriors sleep near the center, where it's warmest.
Explained Graypaw.
They usually share their prey together over by that clump of nettles. The younger warriors eat nearby. Sometimes they are invited to join the senior warriors for eating, which is a big honor.
What about the other clan cats?
Firepaw asked, fascinated but feeling rather overwhelmed by all the traditions and rituals of clan life.
Well, the queens share warrior quarters when they work as warriors, but when they're expecting kids or nursing them, they stay in a nest near the nursery. The elders have their own place on the other side of the clearing. Come on, I'll show you.
Firepaw trotted after Graypaw across the clearing and past the shadowy corner where Spottedleaf had her den. They stopped beside a fallen tree that sheltered a patch of lush grass. Crouched among the soft greenery were 4 elderly cats tugging into a plump young rabbit.
Dustpaw and Sandpaw would have brought them that.
Whispered Graypaw.
One of the apprentice duties is catching fresh kill for the elders.
Hello, younger.
One of the elders greeted Graypaw.
Hello, Smallear.
Mewed Graypaw, nodding respectfully.
This must be our new apprentice. Firepaw, isn't it?
Mewed a second Tom. His patchy fur was dark brown, and there was only a stump where his tail should have been.
That's right.
Firepaw replied, copying Graypaw's polite nod.
I'm Halftail.
Purred the brown Tom.
Welcome to the clan.
Have you two eaten?
Meowed Smallear. Firepaw and Graypaw both shook their heads.
Well, there's enough here. Dustpaw and Sandpaw are turning into fine hunters. Would you mind if these youngsters shared a mouse, One Eye?
The pale gray queen who lay beside him shook her head. Firepaw noticed one of her eyes was clouded and sightless.
What about you, Dappletail?
The other elder, a torso she-cat with a gray muzzled mew and a voice cracked with age.
Of course not.
Graypaw stepped forward and took a large mouse from the pile of prey, then dropped it at Firepaw's feet.
You still haven't tasted mouse?
He asked.
No.
Firepaw admitted. He suddenly felt excited by the warm smells that were rising from this piece of fresh kill. His whole body quivered at the thought of sharing his first real food as a clan member.
In that case, you could have the first bite. Just save me some.
Graypaw dipped his head and stood back to give Firepaw room. Firepaw crouched down and took a large bite from the mouse. It was juicy and tender, and sang with the flavors of the forest.
What do you think?
Asked Graypaw.
Fantastic!
Mumbled Firepaw, his mouth still full.
Move over then.
Mewed Graypaw, stepping forward and bending his head to take a bite. As the 2 apprentices shared the mouse, they listened to the elders talk among themselves.
How long before Bluestar appoints a new deputy?
Asked Smallear.
What did you say, Smallear?
Mewed One Eye.
I think your hearing has become as poor as your eyesight.
Snapped Smallear impatiently.